expressed during this program are not necessarily the views of the station, its staff, or management. Equal time will be given to people with opposing views.
Every pocket of our clothes, folks. Good morning, Muskegon, and all of you out there in radio, podcast, iHeartRadio, and computer land. This is Ion Muskegon, and I'm Jim Riley here at Muskegon's Clear Channel Studios with my friend and engineer, the legendary Oscar Osbo. And sitting here as co-host, very familiar face. I somehow recognize him, although not in this particular seat. Fruitport Township Supervisor Brian Worsham. And good morning, guys. Brian, thanks for getting up.
You're welcome. Good morning.
I'm sure.
Very familiar face on radio, too.
Yeah, great face for radio.
Yes, yeah. We all have fabulous faces for radio.
I forgot that
taping it, right?
You're taping this, so
that's right.
Great
Brian,
face for radio.
Brian has got his radio garb on this morning, and you'll be able to check that out on Monday night, a week from tomorrow, 8 o'clock to 9:30 on TV 40 or Comcast 397. You get a chance to see the Ion Muskegon show live.
Make sure you TiVo that.
Yeah, there we go. Right. That's right. Well, hey, we get, believe it or not, we get a lot of fans from that, and it is kind of interesting because it is an entirely different group of people who are interested in watching in the evening on prime time, which of course I'm sure this is intergalactically followed also. So anyway, nonetheless. We've got a very full show this morning.
Intergalactically? Are you saying aliens watch your show?
Watch
well,
the show, yeah.
Did you go for a ride some point in time?
We've
any probes out there somewhere? Yeah.
I'm just saying.
We've got a way to extend that conversation in a moment here, but I do want to let folks know we do have a full show today. We've got Jack Spencer from the Mackinac Center is going to call in right around 8:45, and he's going to be refreshing us, unfortunately, on this odious scam that won't die. That's that SEIU. The union has so far skimmed over $30 million and counting, and which is essentially, at least in my view, stolen from Michigan citizens who are providing home care and health care, sometimes for families, sometimes as small businesses in their homes.
My wife's a member of the SEIU.
Okay, well, the SEIU may very well have some parts of it that are fine. This is not a good situation for anybody. Jack will bring us up to date on that. And then at the 9 o'clock hour, we've got special guest Republican senatorial candidate Clark Durant, and I think that he's another one, one of the four who are running against Debbie Stabenow in the primary race. But this is important for a lot of reasons to get an opportunity to speak with Clark, as we did a couple weeks ago with Gary Glenn, and we will continue this series. But a lot of people don't realize that the primary ballots that folks can vote on, the absentee ballots, will be sent out in some municipalities next week.
Correct.
So in good measure, half of the voters that are going to vote in this primary will be making their decisions shortly. So we need to get as much information out as possible to you folks, and hopefully this will be a helpful and enlightening interview with Clark Durant. So we're looking forward to that at the 9 o'clock hour. And we are a phone-in show, and the number is 231-830-3109. But when we do have phone-in guests, and both Jack and Clark will be phoning us, you won't be able to phone in. So if you want to call now, or hold your calls till probably sometime after about 9:30. I like to update people. There is a citizen lawsuit initiated by myself on behalf of the citizens of Muskegon against the Muskegon County Board of Commissioners, simply asking them to stop breaking the laws of the Freedom of Information Act and the Open Meetings Act. And just like Richard Nixon so unsuccessfully did, they are stonewalling. They are refusing to respond to our requests, and we will continue our quest in the courts, and it looks like this is ultimately going to have to go back into a full-blown court decision. So unfortunately, your tax dollars are being horribly wasted in this, and really all we want the county to do is to say, look, we made an inadvertent mistake, and we're not going to do it again. And Oscar's got a little...
Well, I was going to, but you kind of like that was a...
Well, I'm not a crook.
Oh.
I've earned everything I've got.
Yeah, well,
I'm not a crook.
Well, that's what the 10 of the 11 essentially are telling us, and we'll see how that works out for them. One of the things I wanted to get to, because I know we are very tight for time here, but it so bothers me that we live in a country just blessed with literally everything, and we sit too often, and I know I'm guilty of this too, but we sit too often and we think that we are immune to the things that are happening outside our little homes in many cases. We look at what's going on in Greece and in Europe, and truly, I think it's been undercovered by the media, but people who have retired, their pension checks have stopped. People who are working have lost their jobs and have no checks coming down. This is just the beginning of what may very well be far, far worse economic news for the people in Greece and in Europe. People seem to have forgotten the massive, almost international banking collapse that we had just a few years ago, just 4 years ago. They forget that General Motors needed to be bailed out and still owes $20 billion. I mean, this is an enormous amount of money because of mismanagement. And Brian, you had mentioned earlier, we were talking about those people we elect, how critical it is.
Well, I don't think anybody that takes an elected post, well, I shouldn't say anybody, but a significant majority of those that take an elected post knowingly undermine the operations of the municipality or entity and just devastate it financially. I don't think anybody goes in there and goes, watch what I'm going to do to my local government, when I get control. I just think in a lot of circumstances it's lack of knowledge. It's lack of ability. And honestly, that was going on, I think, prior to my coming into office with Fruitport Charter Township. It was headed down a path of self-destruction, and nobody saw the train wreck coming.
And that's the problem, because there was a train on its way, and the little car that's at Fruitport Township was sitting on the tracks. And we have a situation here in Muskegon County. Again, it so disappoints me that we consider ourselves immune to the disasters that are out there when we have the Muskegon Heights schools sitting right next to us. It's right in our city. When we have the city of Detroit just across the state, we know that it can happen. And just this past week, just in the last few days, some items came up that just got my bees in a bonnet and grumped me out big time. Well, what we've got going here is, I'll read this to you. The Muskegon County Airport was recently awarded a $12,000 grant by the Michigan Department of Transportation Aeronautics under the Michigan Air Service Program, which essentially is to buy billboards or to promote Muskegon County Airport. Now, any of us who've done any kind of driving around knows that we've seen Grand Rapids billboards for the Grand Rapids Airport. We've seen Muskegon billboards. Given that the choices are fairly narrow, we're just taking really $12,000 and essentially giving it to the billboard companies. This is one of dozens and dozens and dozens of these spending items that happens just time and again. We all know about the snow cone machine that our sheriff said, well, I have no need for a snow cone machine, but I'm sure he's not going to take it because it's free money. We have our county commissioners just this past week, one of our county commissioners who's involved in I think a very wonderful concept of bringing the fireworks to the Muskegon on the 4th of July, proudly told the county commission that the sheriff said he was going to provide sheriff services for free. Well, he was going to provide the services for free to the folks putting on the fireworks, but not for free to the county residents and the taxpayers. Now, I'm not saying it's a good idea or a bad idea, but no one even gave a thought to ask, what is this going to cost? Another county commissioner said, we'd like to have the county waive its normal fees to provide trolley services to the 4-H fair. A very noble concept. When someone asked, well, what's that going to cost, which actually was shocking that someone asked that question. He said, "Oh, I don't know." So here's somebody who said, "I want you to waive the fee." Didn't even bother to find out what's the fee because there's cost involved. It's like they're playing with somebody else's credit card. And
I think that's part of it. It's not my money, so I'm not really sure that it makes any difference. So let's just go ahead and allow for it.
Well, I want to get to this final one because this is the one that really just got me. We are in the competition, I guess, for a $720,000 grant from the federal government, which of course is free money. That's the mindset that our leaders, the people we've elected here in Muskegon, view this as. $720,000 of federal money given to the Muskegon County Board of Commissioners to reduce the obesity epidemic, they call it, in Muskegon County. Now, folks, go to one of these meetings, and there are some folks that are slender, but this isn't a group of folks that you really would expect to see, let's say, at a Weight Watchers, at least teaching a Weight Watchers class. There's absolutely no there's no plan of what they're going to do with it. There will be absolutely no procedure, no policy to determine if it made any sense. It's just $720,000 of free money that's going all over every county in the country, I'm sure, is going to get this kind of deal. If we allow it, we deserve what we get, I guess.
I was just going to say, last time I checked, I'm in shape. Round's the shape, right?
Yeah, that's right. I've been in shape all my life.
I've been in shape all my life. Round's the shape.
That's your choice, but the physical shape that you're going to be in is their choice, and unfortunately, you got to pay for their big elephant ears. We'll be back shortly. We will be back with Jack Spencer from the Mackinac Center.
Love me sometime.
Well, hi, I'm Jim Riley, and I'm sitting here with David Wells. David is a candidate for judge here in Muskegon County. And David, which particular judge position are you looking for? It's confusing to a lot of us.
I'm running for circuit court judge in the 14th Circuit for the state of Michigan.
All right, so that's a circuit court. What does a circuit court judge do?
In Michigan, we have three different types of courts. We have probate court, district court, and circuit court. And circuit court handles all the criminal cases that are felonies. Those are the ones with the larger penalties, the more serious offenses. And they handle all cases that have dollar values in excess of $25,000. So if you have a lawsuit involving a large amount of money, that would be handled in circuit court. Plus, circuit courts handle petitions for people asking for an order for somebody to either stop doing something or to make somebody do something.
What would be an example of that?
If you want an injunction against a particular employer for doing something to the employees, or if you want an injunction against your neighbor to stop them from cutting down a tree or something of that nature, any order that you are requesting from a court that you want to force somebody to do something or prevent them from doing something.
So we have a situation going on that's right now in the state of Michigan where there's concern about the fireworks being let off at different times of the night. Is that something that would come in front of a circuit court judge?
Yes, that's typically what we call a nuisance case, and you would file in circuit court asking a judge to issue an order preventing fireworks to take place at a certain time period because it's a nuisance to the neighbors. Also, circuit courts, and it gets a little confusing in Michigan because we have family courts and they're kind of a blend of circuit courts and probate courts. But circuit courts also handle divorce and domestic relation matters.
Oh, so divorce also. That's a big part of it, of course.
And something that a lot of people, unfortunately, are familiar with, circuit courts handle personal protection orders.
Okay, and that would have to do with someone being married or at least wanting someone that they know to be kept away from them.
Yes.
Okay. you are running for a seat that will be open, or at least a judicial seat that will be open. Who currently is that judge?
Judge Graves is currently in that position, and the seat is open because he is prohibited from running again due to the state law on age limitation for judges.
And my understanding now is that there are 6 people who are running for this one single seat, and that there will be an election coming up sometime in August. When is that?
Yes, there are 6 candidates, and all 6 candidates run nonpartisan in the August 7 primary. And the top 2 vote getters in that primary on August 7 will then be put on the ballot in November for the final selection in November.
And my understanding was that it's a little confusing, or at least it was confusing initially. They only can vote for one judge, is that correct?
That is correct.
David, it sounds like circuit court judges handle a vast array of matters involving lots of different aspects of the law. What is it about your background which makes you qualified to be a judge involving such a broad scope of topics?
Well, Jim, most lawyers throughout their practice only have experience in a limited number of areas of the law. They usually specialize in certain areas. In my 35 years of practicing law, I have had the luxury of practicing in almost all areas of the law, including personal injury, labor, construction, negligence, malpractice, real estate, divorce, contracts, insurance, zoning, criminal, many areas of the law. If I'm elected circuit court judge, it is unlikely that I will encounter much of any issue as a judge that I have not already encountered and have experience with as an attorney practicing law.
Well, you've said before that being a circuit court judge does involve a broad array. Is there something in particular, obviously you've got experience that I suspect is unmatched by anyone else who's interested in this position, but is there something in particular that you bring that you think that perhaps would be unique to this group of 6 who are seeking this judicial appointment?
The uniqueness has to do with the breadth and scope of my practice and experience that I've had over the years. And much of it in circuit court, but also in other venues as well as in judicial venues.
Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do when Chevy John Brown come for you?
Call Bad Boys Bail Bonds. Open 24/7, 365 days a year. Agents statewide and nationwide. We do 10% bonds for less. Call toll free 866-728-6400. And remember, if we can't get you out, you ain't getting out. Payment plans available. Call now 866-728-6400. Classic Computer Sales and Service. They buy, sell, trade, repair, and upgrade. New custom-built computers, 3-year guarantee, excludes laptops. Or your computer tuned up with more memory, hard drive, or maybe a DVD burner installed for $49.95. Need cables, power supply, or get the computer built the way you want it. You can do it at Classic Computer in their new location, 1921 Apple Avenue, Suite B. Call 773-5957. Classic Computer with hometown quality service.
Make a run for the border. Taco Bell is waiting to cook for you. Delicious tacos, nachos, chalupas, gorditas, quesadillas, or try their famous grilled stuffed burrito for only $1.99. Make it a combo for only $3.49. Their large variety includes specialties, combos, supreme salads, and kids' meals. Taco Bell, the best fast food north of the border. So walk in or drive up. Visit all of the Taco Bells in West Michigan. Open Sunday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Taco Bell's open Fridays and Saturdays from 10 a.m. until 1 a.m.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you dadgum.
That dadgum government. Well, we need government, but Ian Muskegon wants to make sure that government is accountable. And as Patrick Henry had said, and I this is going to be a perfect entree to our guest, Jack Spencer, but as Patrick Henry has said, the liberties of a people never were nor ever will be secure when the transactions of their rulers may be concealed from them. And Jack Spencer from the Mackinac Center, are you on the line? Well, doesn't sound like he is. He was a moment ago.
Again, he may not be able to hear over the...
Can you hear? Oh, I got the music. Okay, music's off.
Jack?
Yes.
There we go.
Alrighty. Good morning.
Good morning.
I don't know if you heard the entree, but thank you for being online this morning. Let's get to it. We talked earlier to our folks about this SEIU scam that's so far taken over $30 million from essentially small business owners. Jump into it. Bring us up to date.
Well, it had, as people may remember, the legislature passed. First, they tried to defund the entity that was the dummy employer that had been used under Jennifer Granholm to make the unionization take place.
Can you give us a quick background so the folks who haven't heard about it know what's going on?
Yeah, it was a unionization in 2005. It took place all covertly. There was no news coverage. This was all in the back rooms and the lobbies. And what happened was that there were about 44,000 people in the state taking care of homebound patients, a lot of them disabled in one way or another, developmentally disabled people and their parents taking care of them, other ones sick in one way or another, and there was a program that had been around for quite a while called the Home Help Program, where these people could stay at home and have somebody treat them there instead of being institutionalized. And the taxpayers had provided a program where they would get a check, a Medicaid check, to help them out. And the union saw that as an opportunity for getting dues.
And so what they did was that they sent out essentially what was a postcard where you could send in and say that you were interested or not in being in the union. And since no one really quite understood what was going on, the vast majority of the people didn't even respond. A small amount did, and then bingo, they were all unionized, right?
Well, yeah, that's the shorter way. I mean, the reality of it is we now know that not only that, but several of those came back with incorrect address marked on it as well. So, I mean, it's even worse than that version. But basically, they were netted into a union without even knowing it, and until someday they happened to notice that this thing called dues was coming out of their Medicaid checks.
And that was money from the state that was to be paid to these folks for providing the service that the state might very well have had to provide. And now they're paying dues to a union that they never had any interest in becoming. I mean, the vast majority of these folks still have no interest in being part of the union.
Oh, yeah, and actually the vast majority of them aren't even people who do it for a living. There's maybe about 8,000 of these people are what you call a home health care worker who goes from client to client. The vast majority, 75 to 80%, are literally friends and relatives taking care of a child or a parent or something like that. They get up in the morning, I guess according to the union, they theoretically go to work when they get out of bed and go into the next room.
Well, okay, but you guys at the Mackinac Center filed suit and won on a few occasions, and I know that the governor and I know that the Republicans in the State House and Senate had passed bills, and I'd even called you up on a couple of occasions congratulating you and the Mackinac Center for great work in getting this injustice fixed, and now we find out that it continues on. What's going on? $30 million has been taken from these people.
Well, we've never gone to court on this before. There was the daycare one, which was similar, but much smaller and nowhere near as cleverly done.
Okay.
And that one got stopped. It was at a point where the courts were willing to look at what happened. There was a discovery phase. They'd gotten tons of information on it. When Governor Snyder came in, he simply put a stop to it, and there was nowhere near the embeddedness in the system of that of the daycare people, and so it was easier to stop. This one was done far more cleverly, and this one was actually done prior to the daycare one.
Now, you say this one, you mean the people who provide home health care services. Okay. So, in other words, if I have, let's say, a child who needs home health care who might otherwise have gone to the state, I can take care of that child, my own child, at home. I'll get a check from the state to help in that. And this union then takes their union dues out of the check before I even get it. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay, and this continues on. Now, this is odious. This is just flat out wrong. This is the SEIU union. Is that correct?
Yes, it started purely with the SEI union, and then it was big enough that they created an affiliate called SEIU Healthcare Michigan. So technically, it's a separate affiliate, but $7 million out of the $11 million they made from this for overall last year, that Healthcare Michigan made last year, gets sent back to Washington, D.C. to the parent union, SEIU.
And this is the same union that has actually been hiring people to go around the Mitt Romney campaign stops, hired hecklers?
Mm-hmm. Well, and not only that, they're trying to get this locked in on the ballot. They're trying to get this particular unionization written into Michigan's Constitution. Now, I don't know if they will succeed in getting enough petition signatures to have it on the ballot in November, but they know the handwriting's on the wall. I mean, as bad as this decision was last week, that it's supposed to continue till next February, according to the federal judge.
Now, when you say continue, you mean the dues being forcibly taken out?
The dues being taken out.
Okay.
They know that there's now a law in Michigan that at some point the party's going to be over for them. So they are trying to get it on the ballot, and of course it'll be all about supposedly helping, disabled people. I mean, this is the kind of rhetoric you'll hear if it gets on the ballot.
Jack, will this be a standalone initiative, or will this be folded into something else?
No, standalone.
Oh my golly!
This is a big deal. This is an entire union. SEIU Healthcare Michigan is an entire union that probably will cease to exist if this dues thing with these home health care workers stops.
Because the vast majority of these folks, who are essentially small business people, do not want to be in this union.
The vast majority of them, first I do have to correct you, the vast majority of them are parents or relatives. I don't even know if you call them small business people.
Family members, okay.
There's this, if it were just the 7,000 or 8,000 who think of it as their employment, it wouldn't be quite as bad. It'd still be bad, but it wouldn't be quite as bad. Most of these people are just people taking care of a loved one. But the vast majority of them can't be helped by the union. The union can't do anything about their working conditions or anything else. Things tend to get passed involved with this. It's all like, let's pretend this is a job. Okay, you're supposed to take 45 minutes to bathe the patient, et cetera, et cetera. These kind of idiotic things come down which have nothing to do with the reality.
Well, is there a bureaucracy that's created around this now?
Well, no, the real bureaucracy created around it. The dummy employer, which was defunded by the legislature in 2011, and we wondered why this continued afterward, was kept alive by the union. The union gave this entity, Michigan Quality Community Care Council, money to stay alive when the state defunded it. The state defunded it in an attempt to stop it. And it came down to where it was just one person, the executive director of the union, working out of her house. Not only that, she was drawing unemployment. So the dummy entity that's kept this thing going, theoretically, is one person working 3 hours a month out of her house.
Jack, so right now, we're running out of time here, but right now, this scam continues. The money continues to flow into the SEIU union, and there is the union is now working on an initiative, a statewide initiative that would put this into the Constitution. Is there anything else we can do? Should we should be calling our state reps and our state senators, should we not?
Well, it's not. Yes, it should be put in front of these people. The one thing the governor could do that he hasn't is he could replace the people on the Michigan Quality Community Care Council board. He has the ability to do that.
Okay, Michigan Community Care Council board. I'm going to make an issue of this, and I really appreciate it. We are running up against the clock here. Jack, Spencer from the Mackinac Center, you guys are really doing the work that's desperately needed here in our state. Thanks so much. Have a great week.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Make a run for the border. Taco Bell is waiting to cook for you. Delicious tacos, nachos, chalupas, gorditas, quesadillas, or try their famous grilled stuffed burrito for only $1.99. Make it a combo for only $3.49. Their large variety includes specialties, combos, supreme, salads, and kids' meals. Taco Bell, the best fast food north of the border. So walk in or drive up. Visit all of the Taco Bells in West Michigan. Open Sunday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Taco Bell's open Fridays and Saturdays from 10 a.m. until 1 a.m.
Classic Computer Sales and Service. They buy, sell, trade, repair, and upgrade. New custom-built computers, 3-year guarantee, excludes laptops. Or your computer tuned up with more memory, hard drive, or maybe a DVD burner installed for $49.95. Need cables, power supply, or get the computer built the way you want it. You can do it at Classic Computer in their new location, 1921 Apple Avenue, Suite B. Call 773-5957. Classic Computer with hometown quality service.
Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do when Sheriff John Brown come for you?
Call Bad Boys Bail Bonds, open 24/7, 365 days a year. Agents statewide and nationwide. We do 10% bonds for less. Call toll free 866-728-6400. And remember, if we can't get you out, you ain't getting out. Payment plans available. Call now, 866-728-6400.
I see that you have considerable experience as a circuit court case evaluator, an arbitrator, and a mediator. Would you please tell us about this and how it really qualifies you to be a circuit court judge?
Thank you, Jim. A circuit court case evaluator, that's a rather unique process in the state of Michigan. When cases are in litigation in circuit court, judges send it to an evaluation panel. You have a defense-oriented person on this panel, a neutral person, and a plaintiff-oriented person. And the parties bring their issue to those three evaluators, and those evaluators try to put a settlement value on the case, evaluating the strengths and weaknesses of the case. I have been a neutral, that's the person in the center like a judge, circuit court case evaluator for 29 years, helping attorneys settle their circuit court cases. The second area that you mentioned is as a mediator. A mediator is somebody who brings parties in a lawsuit together and tries to get them to settle the case. They hear arguments from each side and they work with each side on coming up with solutions to settle their case, and they evaluate the law and the facts in that situation. I have been trained and certified as a circuit court mediator for 11 years, and I am on the roster or panel in numerous courts throughout the state of Michigan where circuit court judges appoint me to be the mediator to attempt to resolve issues that are in litigation in circuit court.
So in order to be a mediator, you have to have additional training, and obviously you've got many, many years now of experience as a mediator.
I've been doing that for 11 years now.
Okay.
The final area that you mentioned is an arbitrator. An arbitrator is like a private judge. When parties have disputes and decide that they want to have this case resolved outside of the courts, they will go to arbitration. Most of my work has been with the American Arbitration Association. So parties in a dispute will go to the American Arbitration Association and say, we have this matter that we want decided and we want to hire our own judge to make the decision in this case. I am one of those judges, and I have been doing this for 15 years in various types of cases. Some are labor cases, some are commercial cases, some are employment cases, some are health-related cases. But for 15 years, I've been the judge of choice for parties who want to hire me to act as the judge and make a decision in their case.
Because parties in a dispute say that we have to go hire an arbitrator, and here's the list that they choose from, and in fact they've chosen you, well, for 15 years.
Frequently it's by contract. Parties, when they enter into a relationship with each other, say, okay, if we have a dispute, we're going to resolve this by means of arbitration as opposed to going to circuit court.
So if you become the next circuit court judge, you will bring with you a pretty broad array of judicial-style, judge-style experiences.
Yeah, not only have I been experienced as a judge, as an arbitrator, I have been the judge or arbitrator of choice of parties. They chose me because of my skills and talents.
Are there any particular cases where you were a private judge, is your term? I like that term. Are there any particular cases that stand out?
One in particular, a couple of years ago, I was the arbitrator in a case involving a municipality in southeastern Michigan and a big waste disposal company. And they were arguing over about $25 million in damages. So to say the least, it was a highly charged case with highly qualified attorneys, and the decision that I made was fairly substantial in the millions of dollars. And frankly, that type of case is larger and more complicated than most issues that would come before a circuit court judge in the county of Muskegon.
It seems a little unique to me that someone with your experience would be interested in being a judge, because quite often you've got young people, young attorneys who don't have this type of experience. I feel a lot more comfortable knowing that someone's already been there, done that kind of an experienced attorney. So I appreciate that very much.
I doubt that any of my opponents in this race have any experience at all, either being a circuit court mediator or certainly an arbitrator. At least to my knowledge, I don't think they have any experience like that. So I believe I do have probably the broadest and most extensive experience for this job of any of the candidates running.
I think if you are a citizen of Muskegon County and you are interested in getting the best decision, the wisest decision from a judge, experience really does matter. And it sounds to me like you bring an awful lot of that to the table.
Thank you.
You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you dadgum.
Well, Roger Miller's not happy with the dadgum government, and after our little discussion about this SEIU union with significant support from some government entities here in the state of Michigan, I think a lot of us have ample reason to be disappointed. But we do have a bright sun rising out in the East, and that is Republican candidate for the United States Senate, Clark Durant, is on the phone with us. Good morning, Clark.
Good morning, Jim. How are you on this bright, sunny morning?
Well, we are just thrilled. I'm frankly a little grumpy. I don't know if you happened to listen to us on the internet when we had our discussion with the Mackinac Center's Jack Spencer, but that was quite a depressing little conversation from my standpoint.
Too much union power.
Well, again, we're not anti-union here, and certainly the state of Michigan is not an anti-union state, but there are certain situations that are just beyond the pale, and this attack on families trying to take care of family members is really something very unique. So anyway, that's not what you're here to talk about, though. Let me just give a little bit of background for those folks who may be just tuning in now. Debbie Stabenow is been there for almost 12 years as our United States Senator. We have a primary coming up in August 7th, where the Republicans will determine who the candidate for the Republican Party will be to replace or to face off and hopefully replace Debbie Stabenow. And one of the reasons it's important that we get going today, and I know you're well aware of this, Clark, but a really significant import is that the absentee ballots are being mailed out in Muskegon County and probably statewide next week, or at least the request for absentee ballots. And that means that as many as 50 or even 60% of the various townships and cities the voters will have to make those decisions, or will be making those decisions within the next couple of weeks. So that's a big deal for folks like you.
Well, it is a big deal, and I think that what Clark Durant brings to the table that I think is different from any of the other Republican primary candidates are probably three things that put me in a better position, frankly, than anyone else to defeat Debbie Stabenow. In fact, I am Debbie Stabenow's worst nightmare. But there is
we want to hear that.
Yeah, the three key things are, number one, you have to offer, and all of three of these things that I'm going to mention have to be present, because if you don't have these three things, you can have one or two, but if you don't have all three, you will not be positioned to defeat Debbie Stabenow, and I've worked very hard to try to put all three of these things in place. The first thing is you have to offer a clear choice. People want to know that their next United States Senator is going to be very different than what Debbie Stabenow and, frankly, Barack Obama have brought to the people these last 4, and in her case, last 12 years. My whole life for 40 years has been about creating opportunities in the private sector for people everywhere to have more choice and more opportunity, where I have been about less government and more freedom. Whether in my service for, Ronald Reagan, I think, Jim, we could all agree that Ronald Reagan was probably the best president in our lifetimes. I was asked to take on two major responsibilities for Ronald Reagan. And when there are tough problems to be solved, and the greatest president in our lifetime asks one of the four of us to do things in his administration, two major things, I think that should communicate this is a conservative, problem solver, free market kind of person that can get things done, which is very different than what Debbie Stabenow is, and is certainly very different than any of the other Republican candidates.
Well, I know that your roots go back to Ronald Reagan. I'm glad you brought that up, and I've heard the term said about you, and I've heard you say it, that you are in fact a problem solver. And in a minute, let's maybe go to your experience with the education experience. But you've got the three specific points of why you believe that you can beat Debbie. What can you maybe articulate on those?
I offer a clear choice. Number two, I am the only Republican who can penetrate her base because of my work in urban areas and in the city of Detroit specifically for the last 20-plus years. There are Democrats who are going to publicly endorse me, even though I'm a conservative Republican, because of the work that I have done these last 20 years. And there's no Republican who can penetrate her base the same way I can. And the third element is you have to be able to raise money. There's only one other Republican race, Pete Hoekstra, who has raised over $2 million, as Clark Durant has raised over $2 million. The other two candidates, good men, but the other two candidates have less than $50,000 in the bank. And you can't take on all of the stuff that will come in this battle if you don't know how to raise money, and people aren't willing to give you money. It's not just about raising it, it's giving it. So those are the three things. Offer a clear choice. 2, be able to penetrate her base. And 3, be able to have people demonstrate that you can raise money or that they even want to give you money. And if you don't have those three things, we cannot defeat Debbie Stabenow. And I am the only Republican that has all three of those things.
Well, let's ask this, because it's obviously not your third item, which it says raise funds. I'm assuming that you're looking at the campaign filings, and that in fact you're the only one, other than Pete, that's in the $1 million plus area, which is critical. I agree with you. You can't win.
In fact, right now it's over $2 million. It's not even $1 million, but it's over $2 million.
Very good. Okay, and that's critical. Let's focus a little bit on number 2, because you're going to have to in Michigan, which was a previously solid blue state. Now things are changing very quickly. But winning votes in her base. How do you go about doing that? And by the way, before you answer that question, I apologize. I did not introduce my co-host here. I've got Fruitport Township Supervisor Brian Worsham. is a co-host, and hopefully he'll get a word in edgewise.
Good morning.
And of course, our engineer here is Oscar Osbo. But winning Democrat votes, I think that's critical. You can't just win the Senate race here by going after Republicans. What is it specifically you're going to do to get Democrats to cross over and vote for you?
Well, there are three things. The first is my stand on the issues are such that Democrats will come to support me.
Give us some issues. Give us some of those issues.
I'm going to be very specific about that. First, on education. I have offered for 20 years an educational opportunity in the city of Detroit that without government funds, when we, for the first 18 or 19 years of our operation, then we opened up a couple of charter schools. But we created the finest schools in the city of Detroit for the children of Detroit. And as a result of that, there are countless numbers of pastors and others in the city who have already communicated to me that they are going to break ranks and they are going to vote for me over Debbie Stabenow. And that's going to be enormously important because it's going to be a close race, and you've got to pick up on the margins. So my work in education, just that one piece. But here's a second piece. When I saved a railroad, when I saved the Ann Arbor Railroad with a wonderful team of people, nobody ever does anything alone.
Can you explain that in a little more detail?
Sure. I was asked by Elizabeth Dole when she was Secretary of Transportation in the Reagan administration. The Ann Arbor Railroad, which is the Michigan Railroad, had gone bankrupt. There was over $100 million in debt and claims. There were 6 major lawsuits. We had 14 labor unions that, frankly, I was able to develop great relationships with the heads of each of those unions, by the way. And I was told to liquidate the railroad. That's the only solution when the problem was of that magnitude. It was owned by the state. It was subsidized by the taxpayers of Michigan. It had clearly run out of time.
What time frame were we talking about? Did this back in the 80s?
I was appointed in the 80s when Reagan was president.
All right.
And his Secretary of Transportation came to me in the same way that his Attorney General had come to me on another responsibility. But anyway, so I was to take over as trustee this railroad, and as I say, the recommendation was liquidated. I came back to Michigan, talked to the workers, talked to some of the people in management, talked to the customers, and figured out with a wonderful team of people how we could save the railroad. And we saved it in a way that went from a railroad that had $100 million in debt and claims filed against it to where every allowed claim was paid back 100 cents on the dollar. Wouldn't that be nice in a federal situation?
Maybe you should have been involved with the General Motors takeover.
Yeah, I wish I had been trustee. We wouldn't have had the unfair treatment of so many people in that reorganization. But leaving that aside, and then we went from 14 labor unions to one union with labor support. We settled up the lawsuits. I persuaded the state of Michigan to sell me, not me personally, but me as trustee, the railroad. So it was now in the private sector. We went and found a management team. And competitively bid out who could buy the railroad. And that was over 25 years ago. And I happened, the headquarters for the Ann Arbor Railroad is now in Howell, Michigan. And there are blue-collar people who will cut commercials for me who are Democrats. But they will cut commercials for me to say, look, this guy came in under circumstances that everybody would have lost their job. There have been some major layoffs, all that sort of stuff. And there was a skeleton crew, if you will. And I saved those jobs. Plus, there have been more people employed by the Ann Arbor Railroad over time and paying taxes over time now and being a successful little transportation distribution railroad company. And it's in the private sector. So there's all sorts of blue-collar people associated with that project that will cut commercials for me and will say, I'm a Democrat, but I'm going to support Clark Durant. And so the third element where I'll be able to penetrate Debbie's base. I'm a Reagan guy, and Reagan had all on the whole cultural issues, the whole sense of supporting America and America being strong again. You've got all sorts of people who will say, you know, I supported Ronald Reagan, and if this was Ronald Reagan's guy, I'm going to support him too. So I think that those messages get communicated in a way, people are going to say, you know something, this is a guy we need to be our United States Senator. He's a fighter. He's got the experience in a way that none of the other, frankly, Republican candidates have, across all sorts of, from business to education to political or public service for President Reagan. This is a guy who can help us when our country now is at risk, when our country truly is in danger of losing the very framework of freedom and opportunity and the American dream for all people. And I think that separates in spades from every other Republican running for this race, but also gives me the ability to defeat Debbie Stabenow in a way that none of the other candidates can do. All good men, but still don't have these attributes that are necessary to defeat Debbie Stabenow. Don't underestimate her. She's a very formidable campaigner. She's going to have millions of dollars to get out the vote and do a variety of other things. And if you don't have those three things, clear difference, able to penetrate her base, and the ability to raise money and have people give you money, you can't defeat her.
Well, let me ask you this, because this has been something that's really bothered me for a very long time, and this is the government's buying votes, which, of course, is what they do best, or politicians buying votes. And Debbie Stabenow and Carl Levin, our two Michigan senators, just recently and very proudly came up with a grant, which apparently isn't final yet, but it'll be a significantly expensive grant, and this is going to help Muskegon County. We have a MATS, Muskegon Area Transit System, buy buses that will cover more parts of the county than they currently provide. And this generally looks to be essentially free or almost entirely free to the county of Muskegon. Is this something you would support, or is this something that you would be against?
Jim, that's a great question. Here is the challenge facing our people and our country. We are at risk of being financially insolvent. We are at risk as a people, as a state, as a country, because of the federal government, of being financially insolvent. Now, we've got to start acting like adults and saying, when you have whether it was your own family, if it was your own county, your own country, your own state, your own business, if you don't change the way you do business, you're going to go belly up. And we do not want our country to go belly up.
Well, let's
so
take.
You have to focus on. We have a government that is spending far beyond and has committed itself far beyond the revenues that are necessary to meet its obligations.
Well,
whatever Debbie Stabenow and Carl Levin are doing, it's like the bank is empty and they're still spending. Now, what would you do with somebody who was doing that in your business or in your radio station or in your family? You'd say, we've got to stop this and start again and get our house in order.
Well, let's take a position of starting, and let me ask you very specifically. This is this grant to Muskegon County is really not a one-up. This is a part of apparently a $10 billion a request that they call it the Tiger applications. Apparently there are 703 of these, so it's not just Muskegon County getting the benefit of the government largesse. Where would you stand on either enabling, helping out Muskegon County with these buses, or saying, hey, no, we're stopping that? Give me an answer.
Here's the best way to help create more jobs and more economic growth in Muskegon County and every one of the 83 counties in Michigan. And it's the following three things. And we have to stay very focused on this, because if we can get lost in the particulars that everybody says, well, this is better for me and that's better for you. Here are the three things that will bring economic growth and more jobs to Muskegon County and every county in Michigan. And they are the following. Number one, we need to reduce the regulations and tax burdens and barriers to creating capital, both human and financial, that exist that make it harder for people to invest in Michigan, let alone in America. Okay. High capital gap, high capital gains has to come down. High corporate tax rates have to come down. The penalties that are set up because you're saving and investing and paying out dividends. We penalize savings, investment, and dividends, and we subsidize the things that work against economic growth. So number one, everything has to be about reducing the taxes and regulations on small businesses and the job creators that can go out and create jobs and create increased tax revenues to allow counties to make their own decisions about what they want to do to meet their transportation needs. That's number one.
Well, wait. Before we get to number two, let's go back, because you did finish up letting counties. How would you then change this? Again, we are faced where I would say that this is a great opportunity. We are going to be re-electing or not re-electing 10 of our 11 county commissioners. All it would take would be 5 or 6 of them, or 6 of them actually, to say, no, we don't want this grant. Should they do that? Or would you support them saying no?
Simple answer. Jim, here's the simple answer in what I'd do if I was a United States Senator. I'd ask the different leaders in Muskegon to get together with me and I with them, and let's look at what this grant will do and what it won't do. And let's see whether this even is the role that the federal government ought to be playing, or whether or not it's something that we can develop the resources and the capital to achieve the same thing without getting these specialized grants. This grant may not be in the county's even long-term best interest. It sounds like a good thing up front. And what I would do is I'd like to ask the different business leaders and the different political leaders in the county, let's get together and talk about, Detroit, for example, where I live outside Detroit, but Detroit is a city that has had grants forever, and it's only gotten poorer as a result of every additional new grant. Because if you look at the history of Detroit, it's a city that has been in decline for many years, and yet it has had countless federal grants. Well, I don't want Muskegon to follow in the very difficult road that Detroit has had. What you really want for Muskegon is to sit down and figure out what are the barriers that keep people from coming to Muskegon, that keep capital from being invested in Muskegon, that keep businesses from not forming in Muskegon. And those are the things that you want to look at. If you don't have if you have these conversations around this piece, you'll never find the long-term and immediate solutions that will help people in creating more economic growth, more jobs, and more opportunity in their cities, their towns, and their counties.
We're coming up to a break. Can we have you back here to continue on here, because we've got another grant coming down the pike here, $700,000 from those folks with the unlimited bank account at the federal government to reduce the obesity epidemic that we have here in Muskegon. And surely you can't be for fat people continuing down the path of danger. So we'll get back with Clark Durant after the break and find out how he's going to slim everybody down. So thanks for hanging on.
Hey, no problem, Jim. Thank you.
Whoa, don't you love me sometime?
Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do when Chevy John Brown come for you?
Call Bad Boys Bail Bonds. Open 24/7, 365 days a year. Agents statewide and nationwide. We do 10% bonds for less. Call toll free 866-728-6400. And remember, if we can't get you out, you ain't getting out. Payment plans available. Call now 866-728-6400.
Make a run for the border. Taco Bell is waiting to cook for you. Delicious tacos, nachos, chalupas, gorditas, quesadillas, or try their famous grilled stuffed burrito for only $1.99. Make it a combo for only $3.49. Their large variety includes specialties, combos, supreme, salads, and kids' meals. Taco Bell, the best fast food north of the border. So walk in or drive up. Visit all of the Taco Bells in West Michigan. Open Sunday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Taco Bell's open Fridays and Saturdays from 10 a.m. until 1 a.m.
Classic Computer Sales and Service. They buy, sell, trade, repair, and upgrade. New custom-built computers, 3-year guarantee, excludes laptops. Or your computer tuned up with more memory, hard drive, or maybe a DVD burner installed for $49.95. Need cables, power supply, or get the computer built the way you want it? You can do it at Classic Computer in their new location, 1921 Apple Avenue, Suite B. Call 773-5957. Classic Computer with hometown quality service.
David, in addition to having a good legal mind and a broad array of experience, temperament has always been an important issue for me when I look at an elected official, and I think most importantly as a possible judge. Now, I've known you for a long time, and I know that you have tremendous experience, certainly experience outside of the judicial legal world. But I would say that, and I will admit to being a bit biased, but you have a unique temperament that makes you, I believe, the best candidate to be a judge. And one of the things that I've seen over the many years is that you've got a son, a wonderful son, Tyler, who's now in his 20s, who has autism, and quite severe autism. And I know that he has been a challenge ever since he was born. He's been a gift, but he's also been a challenge. How does that affect your temperament as a possible judge, and your temperament as just a parent?
In order for our judicial system to have the respect that it needs from the people in the community who use the judicial system, and in order for a judge to have respect from the attorneys who practice before the judge, it's very important that a judge have a nice, even-tempered personality, that he treats everybody with respect, and that he's able to handle stressful situations in a patient and courteous manner.
I know that you have experienced many stressful situations as a parent, and certainly every parent has handled those, but yours have been unique because of your son's situation.
I consider myself to be one of the more patient people that I know. And I think that's extremely important, and also it's my way of life that I treat everybody courteously and with respect, because they all deserve to be treated respectfully. Even our criminals deserve to be treated respectfully in the courtroom. So it's very important to show this respect at all times, and for the attorneys, sometimes attorneys complain about judges not treating them with the respect that they deserve, and I think the courtroom runs a lot more efficiently, and you do a lot better job when you treat people with respect and courteously at all time. Another important factor, though, is that litigation in circuit courts can be very stressful. It's stressful for the jury, it's stressful for the parties, for the attorneys, for witnesses, and for the judge. And frequently people tend to get a little overcome by their emotions. And it's very important that you have an even-tempered person on the bench to control this. And I've had significant experience doing this. As I mentioned before, I've been an arbitrator for 15 years, and an arbitrator sometimes in very big cases with a lot of stress. And so I've had experience handling those stressful situations. And also as a mediator, when I get parties in a room, frequently the atmosphere can be quite charged and quite emotional, and I have experience bringing people together in a more calm and controlled manner.
I would add also on a personal observation, as someone who's had mental illness in his family, that your son, of course, isn't mentally ill per se, but the experience that you've had with people that are different from others, you're going to run into that as a judge. People with different demeanors are going to be in front of you arguing their cases, and it seems to me that you bring something unique to the table, firsthand sympathy and empathy that I believe is critically important to any judge that we have here in Muskegon County.
One other factor I want to mention, this may sound a little off the wall, but when I get done you'll see that it's not, is I teach scuba diving. And as a scuba diving instructor, I'm frequently dealing with people of all different intelligence levels and knowledge levels and ages, and in very stressful situations and sometimes in life-threatening situations. And I have had a lot of experience through my teaching of scuba diving to people of dealing with even life-threatening, stressful situations, but dealing with them in a calm, professional, and courteous manner.
It's interesting. You would bring the teaching side of your broad experience to the bench also. And I hadn't thought about that, but truly that's going to make you a better judge, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes.
Every pocket of all of your clothes. That's where the folks from certain parts of our government would like to have their hands. And in particular, probably that back pocket where you keep your wallet and credit cards. Because since the money's all gone, who cares as long as you've got unlimited credit cards, which is what our government seems to be living on these days. And we have with us, we are back at Ion Muskegon, we have with us a Republican senatorial candidate, Clark Durant. Hello again, Clark.
Good morning. I'm really delighted to be here, Jim. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, we are very pleased and blessed to have you here, and thank you for taking the time out. Before the break, we talked a little bit about this $720,000, it sounds like, of government money, federal government money that's going to come into the not all that svelte Muskegon County Board of Commissioners. And this, again, was very enthusiastically written up in our local newspaper, and I'm sure just as the free bus money was enthusiastically received. Are you going to be the Grinch on things like this?
Well, here's the whole point. What the government is doing is basically robbing and stealing from people's Social Security accounts in order to do a variety of pet projects. So they're taking money that, frankly, they should not be spending under the Constitution, under the Congressional Section 1, or Article 1, Section 8, enumerated powers. But leaving that aside for the moment, I think you have to look at it. All these different grants are in many cases designed simply to say, as you said at the top of the show, to buy votes, to show people that we care about you. What in point of fact, it's just the opposite. It doesn't work to help us, and in point of fact, it drains the Treasury of money that in many cases the Treasury was given by hardworking, ordinary, good men and women and put into their Social Security accounts, and it's just taken out of there, and then they do all sorts of things, and then they pay people back in dollars that are worth less than what they were when they put in. And in many cases, when you die, you don't even have an asset to pass on to your children because the government has been spending all sorts of money to buy votes and to increase their, quote, popularity, when in point of fact, it is irresponsible. And if it was done by private businesses, they'd be thrown in jail for using money that ought to be locked up and set apart, because this is hardworking men and women who think they have a retirement program, and the fiduciaries of this, called the members of Congress, have been spending their money to buy their own election, and that is highly irresponsible.
Well, Clark, I like the way that you presented it. One of the complaints that I've had with Republicans and conservative politicians, and I understand it's not easy to fix, but is their inability to communicate, to connect, to articulate the reasons why somebody giving you something for free is worse than somebody saying, no, you can't have it. You can imagine if you were a parent having your young child and going through Toys R Us sometime between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and having to convince your child that no, it's better off that Daddy keeps his money rather than filling the basket full of toys. That's a tough argument, it seems to me. Giving away free stuff, we just got in the state of Michigan, and you probably got it down. I know you didn't get it in Oakland County, but the Department of Homeland Security provided those counties who were interested with snow cone machines, and they were truly called snow cone machines. And again, for some reason, that would have helped us defend our county against, I don't know, maybe people from Florida. But and our sheriff, who is running for re-election, very without much emotion, I would imagine, said, "Oh, sure, we'll take it," and immediately shipped it off to someplace to store it. There is a view that free stuff is good, and Republicans tend to be kind of viewed, certainly by the media and those who do like free stuff, as kind of the Grinches here. That's a tough thing to overcome.
Well, I think the way to try to frame these conversations is to really have people draw pictures so that they can see what is really happening, so that it's the same person who is sort of giving you free stuff, but as you said just after the break, they've actually reached into your pocket and for money that should have been saved and grown for your benefit is being squandered all across the country, not just Muskegon, but your money is being squandered across the country for people who have connections, I don't care whether it's big business, big labor, big donors, or big governments, at your expense, at the expense of the taxpayers. I had a very interesting experience. I took two of our custodial staff at our Cornerstone schools. There was a break, and there was about 20 minutes, and I was in a conference room waiting to go and speak to some of the children. And these two guys were sitting there, and I've known them both for a while. They're good men, and they do great work for the Cornerstone schools. And I took them. I put on a chalkboard exactly what happens to their Social Security money when it's been taken out all these years from their paychecks, and when the companies that they work for have also been contributing. And they were amazed, and they thought they had an account down there with their name on it, that when they retired it would be their money and they would get this this payment. And the point is, when you die, if it was really your account, you'd be able to pass it on to your children. You'd be accumulating capital for your family. And all of that stuff is taken away by the government. And that's the thing that is undermined. As you say, we see all this free stuff, but what they've really done is they've undermined the very existence of the savings and investment of every working family in the Muskegon and in America.
Well, let me ask you this: I'd like to see your this little cartoon. You've got I think quite a good website in support of your campaign. It's ClarkDurant.com. I have links, by the way, to some of the items on your website on my MuskegonPundit.com blog. But is that little cartoon? Is that on your website?
It isn't on there. In fact, it was sort of funny. I was telling that story to somebody in the campaign, and they said, "Clark, we got to get that. We got to get that onto the website." So I'll get that up at some point, perhaps.
Well, I believe that communication skills are critical. This is an area where Republicans have really fallen short. Certainly, George W. Bush, I believe, was a good president, but his communication skills were awful. And you're not going to convince somebody that free stuff is not as good as not free stuff unless you're able to communicate and connect with those people who are out there voting.
Yeah, and I think the other piece to this, Jim, is that America is an exceptional place. America is unique in the world with having a Declaration of Independence that recognizes that every person is endowed by their Creator, and you can't be endowed, which is a gift, by an inanimate thing. So they're endowed by a living God with certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And our government in these days, and it isn't, by the way, it isn't just Barack Obama. This goes back 20 years. It's both Republicans and Democrats who have put our country at risk. And quite frankly, if they don't balance the budget, if they don't start letting people have more control over their own lives, they all should be fired and cut their pensions, cut their pay. I mean, the same way that if you're not performing in something else, you're gone. And this unique country that recognizes that the real power is in every human person to have more control over their own lives, to create value for others. And what we have done is we have stifled and crippled the ability of our people to be successful. And so we're suffering And we're sometimes blaming the wrong parties when it really is all of these politicians who have built up this monstrosity of expense and cost and programs that don't work.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. And again, my view is, folks, if you do take a look at the free buses and this fabulous promise of $750,000 to make Muskegon slim and healthy, this is total garbage. The net result of this is going to be actually probably far worse than nothing. And these are multiplied by the thousands or the 10,000s all over the country. We've got a break coming up here, and we want to thank Clark Durant, candidate for the United States Senate, so much. Appreciate it, and very, very good luck. Voting begins next week or the week after. So be knowledgeable, folks, and Mr. Durant, thank you so much again.
Jim, it's my pleasure, and I look forward to when we're chatting again.
Looking forward to it. Yes, after the primary.
Well, yeah, after the primary. God bless you. Well, and even before it, if you'd like.
Alrighty. Appreciate it.
Okay. God bless you.
Thank
you, Jim.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do when Sheriff John Brown come for you?
Call Bad Boys Bail Bonds. Open 24/7, 365 days a year. Agents statewide and nationwide. We do 10% bonds for less. Call toll free 866-728-6400. And remember, if we can't get you out, you ain't getting out. Payment plans available. Call now 866-728-6400.
Make a run for the border. Taco Bell is waiting to cook for you. Delicious tacos, nachos, chalupas, gorditas, quesadillas, or try their famous grilled stuffed burrito for only $1.99. Make it a combo for only $3.49. Their large variety includes specialties, combos, supreme, salads, and kids' meals. Taco Bell, the best fast food north of the border. So walk in or drive up. Visit all of the Taco Bells in West Michigan. Open Sunday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Taco Bell's open Fridays and Saturdays from 10 a.m. until 1 a.m.
Classic Computer Sales and Service. They buy, sell, trade, repair, and upgrade. New custom-built computers, 3-year guarantee, excludes laptops. Or your computer tuned up with more memory, hard drive, or maybe a DVD burner installed for $49.95. Need cables, power supply, or get the computer built the way you want it? You can do it at Classic Computer in their new location, 1921 Apple Avenue, Suite B. Call 773-5957. Classic Computer with hometown quality service.
David, you have been a foster parent for many years. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I think that fits in with the concept of treating people courteously and dealing with stress. As a foster parent, I frequently have to deal with parents who have had their children taken away from them and the stress of that, and the court hearings regarding those issues. You're dealing with children with the emotional problems. And young children are difficult enough to deal with, but ones with emotional problems that have been taken away from their parent takes a special kind of patience and special kind of attention. And I think that just demonstrates, again, my ability to be patient and courteous to people and to do it in an efficient manner and in a courteous and helpful manner.
Well, I would also say that it gives you a sense of what it's like to be in the middle of the storm when you've got a young child, and you're most interested, of course, in their life, but you have to deal with the parents, and you have to deal with the courts, and you have to deal with, I'm sure, some of the social service people. But it gives you experience, and I think it's a unique experience and a sensitivity and an understanding of what it's like to be on the other side of the bench.
Again, I think that goes to the broadness of my experience and legal background, and as well as my experience with the community.
David, we want our judges to be leaders and fully involved in the community. Tell us a little bit about your experience.
I think it's very important that circuit court judges have a good feel for their community, because they're making decisions that affect the lives of everybody that comes before them. And in order to do that, not only do you have to have a good legal background, a good legal mind, I think you need to know about the lives of the people in your community. You need to know the challenges that they have, and you need to know what the issues are that exist in the community so you can put everything into perspective. I'm a lifelong resident of Muskegon County, a fourth-generation Muskegon County resident, and I've been very active my entire life in numerous organizations in the community, and I feel it very important for not only judges but everybody to contribute to their community, and I've done that.
David, I've known you a long time, and I knew that you had many achievements and many awards from the community, but I was kind of surprised about some of the ones that kind of popped up, and one, of course, was that you were an Eagle Scout as a Boy Scout.
Yes, Boy Scouts was very important in my life. It helped develop the character and the values that I hold as an adult. And after I graduated from law school, I felt a deep debt to that particular organization, so I volunteered a tremendous amount of time working as a unit leader, a district commissioner, a district chairman, merit badge counselor, even worked with the National Jamboree, and eventually I was awarded the District Award of Merit by the Boy Scouts here in Muskegon County.
Now, you've been a lawyer for decades, but you also were president of the Muskegon Bar.
I was, and actually that's been quite a few years ago. I was president pretty much as a young attorney, which is somewhat unusual to have somebody that's out for about 10 years or less be nominated as president and serve as president of the Muskegon County Bar Association.
And you've been a long-term Rotarian, and of course everybody knows how involved the Rotarians are here in Muskegon County, but you also were president of the Rotary. Which Rotary was it?
First I was a member of the Muskegon Rotary, and then when I moved my office to Whitehall, I joined the Montague-Whitehall Rotary Club, and I was president there several years ago and have remained very active in Rotary.
And, well, I hate to admit that you in fact do have an undergraduate degree from University of Michigan as a Spartan, but you also really started out your education at Muskegon Community College, did the first couple years of your education, so I think that's kind of neat having that personal experience with an educational establishment that's so important here to our community. But you recently received an award from your early alma mater of Muskegon Community College. Tell us a little bit about that.
I believe that community colleges are extremely important, and it was very significant in my life because it allowed me to be able to afford to go to school. But at the same time I was going to community college, I was able to live at home, and I worked full-time as a cardiorespiratory therapist at the hospital. So I was able to put myself through school and save some money at the same time, and then go on to University of Michigan and then eventually to law school. Last year I was nominated by Muskegon Community College and chosen as their distinguished alumnus for the year 2011.
They only choose one each year.
That's correct.
That's kind of cool. Well, good for you. And it says an awful lot about the hometown people, because we have really lost so many of the top talent from Muskegon County. And as you say, you're fourth generation. You fully understand what it's like to be a hometown boy. I'd like to touch on one other area which I think is really important and I think brings a unique set of talents, and it's a set of talents in that you have been involved for many, many years, probably decades, in Muskegon General Hospital, and also now with this an osteopathic situation. Can you explain that in a little greater detail?
Yes, I served on Muskegon General Hospital Board and Mercy General Health Partners Board, and eventually I became the director of a foundation, the Osteopathic Foundation for West Michigan, and then through my association with that foundation became the president of the National Association of Osteopathic Foundations, and then eventually through all the people I was meeting in the osteopathic profession, I was chosen to become a member of the Commission on Osteopathic College Credentialing. I'm only one of 3 people in the United States who's not an osteopathic physician who's chosen to be on this particular commission. This commission is authorized by the United States Department of Education to accredit and improve all osteopathic medical schools in the world. And I'm on that particular commission, and I also do medical school visits for accreditation purposes, and my areas of expertise are administration, governance, and finance.
Truly, this is unique. We don't have too many judges that have got this kind of background, and I think as time goes on, you may, as a judge, see more and more cases that involve the medical sides of things, and it just seems to me as a non-lawyer and certainly a non-physician that knowing as much as you do about the medical problems that people face, it brings a very unique talent. I'm glad you've got it.
And that issue is much broader than you probably even imagine, because you have medical insurance issues, you have malpractice issues, you have coverage issues for what medical treatment people are going to get. You have hospitals, and you have negligence regarding hospitals. You have contracts of vendors and contracts with patients. It's a huge, huge area of law.
Are these cases that are likely to show up in the circuit court?
All of them would be in circuit court.
Well, it sure reiterates that experience does count.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you
That dadgum government, well, they're working 24/7 to keep their hands nimble and able to slide into your wallets and into your bank accounts. And we here at Ion Muskegon are doing our best to at least expose a little bit of their sleight of hand. This is Jim Riley with Fruitport Township Supervisor Brian Worsham and the legendary Oscar Osbo back. We had Clark Durant just on the show. I thought he did a very fine job. A couple things. You can get his link. It's clarkdurant.com. One word, clarkdurant.com. I've got links on the MuskegonPundit.com site. But there's also, I thought, a very good Detroit News letter, or it was an article about him, about Clark, in the Detroit News on June 22nd. I've got a link to that in my website, and I'm sure Clark does too, but it gives you a hint of how you can have success. And think about this, those of us here in West Michigan, or in Muskegon County in particular, where we have the destruction of the Muskegon Heights school system. Mr. Durant is able to, and has been for years, to have tremendous success in educating the inner city children. And if that doesn't say, I think, volumes about his abilities, I don't know what else does. He's gone into arguably the hardest area in the entire country, and has had tremendous success. So anyway, do your homework, folks, because voting begins soon. Now, Brian, you came up with, I thought, a really interesting analogy.
Well, he talked about the accountability, and I've kind of taken this position too. Is you got to treat this almost like your home, but kind of what he was talking about was, let's say it's a husband and wife, and they got 3 children. Okay. They're older children, and one of them isn't very successful and needs help. Mom decides it's her child, and she's not going to let the child suffer, and starts pouring life savings of mom and dad into that child, unbeknownst to the other 2 children. And at some point in time, mom has depleted all their financial resources and begins to borrow money to help that child, to a point where it absolutely devastates mom and dad.
Well, and the child, you haven't mentioned that the child doesn't seem to be learning any skills that it would need to wean himself off.
Yeah. Correct. And then at some point in time, mom and dad pass, and the 3 children are tied to the financial situation of mom and dad when mom and dad are now gone. And the other 2 children go, they did what? They poured everything they had and then some in there, and we have some sort of financial responsibility to that? Yes, you do. It's almost like a lot of people are the unknowing children with their eyes closed to the situation, but the one that's receiving all the benefits not going, well, let me just give it back now, because they're not going to give it back. and
or have it to give back.
Somewhere along the lines, mom and dad are going to pass away. Somewhere along the line, it's going to come to a head.
There will be a reckoning, a financial reckoning.
There will be a financial correction, a financial reckoning of some kind. And who is going to suffer that financial correction and that financial reckoning? And it's my kids and my grandkids that are the ones that
I like your analogy, because the mom, and we see this on some of these weird TV shows and all, where the parents, spoil their children. Well, aside
I see it in our own family. So
we may see it in our own families, but it rarely helps the person being helped, or at least being given the money that's taken from other folks. But the person who's really benefiting from it is the person who's giving out the money, at least in the short run, because they get the good feeling that everybody does get when they give free stuff away. And what is insidious
and the one
here,
receiving is going, "Oh, mom's the greatest in the world. She's saving me, Thank
you
love, so much.
Get the love.
There's all the warm and fuzzy feelings, but nobody knows.
A lot of times those kids don't really appreciate it, so they don't realize what they're getting. So.
Correct.
Well, in many cases, you don't even get the love back. And I think a perfect example here is our these ne'er-do-well parents that we have, and we'll just use Muskegon County as an example, but the county leadership, where they've got this it's $1.5 million or so for the new buses, so $750,000 with the promise of reducing an epidemic. My golly, who could be against reducing an epidemic? And they get the good feeling, and certainly they get the good press. The Muskegon Chronicle writers who've written about it have essentially been laudatory in how great this is going to be. And the people who are going to get the money, remember now, this is critical. It isn't going to be you're not going to get a check at home. Someone who needs the bus isn't going to get a check. It's going to go to a union employee who works for the county, and it's going to go to the other outside suppliers of goods and services that are buddies with the people who make the spending decisions in the county. So it stays within the good old boy area, but it doesn't really go out to the rest of the folks. And anyone who's lived in Muskegon and has eyes, just look at the buses that drive by. They don't have any people in them now. They're talking about...
Brian's analogy, too, is kind of actually going to go for America. You look at it as far as America's been spoiled for so many years, we just keep expecting more and more and don't expect to pay it back. We're spoiled children is what we are.
Well,
and
spoiled is right.
Yeah. You said, we do spoil our children. Yes, yeah. I have 3 children and I spoil them. I do. I do spoil them when I can. But I spoil them with what I take time and accumulate, and then I spoil them. I don't go into debt to spoil my children.
Right.
I don't place the burden of that spoiling on my children to, hey, here's a video game and here's the bill. That doesn't happen.
I really like the way you said that. You don't place the burden on them, because that's so true. I know you took your family to Disney World a few years ago, and
I wasn't invited.
And
jeez,
we were
just
not.
Didn't go.
That's right. Yeah, you might very well have been invited, but the facts are that you had to plan for it, you had to budget for it, and everything else.
Yeah, we planned for 3 years.
Well, wouldn't your children have responded?
The money and set it aside for that trip.
But wouldn't your children have responded even better to you as mom and dad if you would have said, "Hey, we're going to go 5 times a year"? Wouldn't the kids have said, "Oh, Daddy, yeah, you're the best dad ever,
dad in the world.
You're the greatest dad in the world," and that to me is the ultimate key.
And the 6th time they'd say, "Disneyland again."
Well, that's true. Yeah, that changes over time. But you have a responsibility to your own budget. Now, obviously, most people in this country, certainly most people in Muskegon County, have that same view of their own budgets. We cannot close our minds and our eyes to the reality that Muskegon Heights is part of our community, and these children and these teachers and these employees, they're out of work. Who knows what their pensions are going to happen? We know if you're buying in a General Motors car, good for you. But the reality is that $20 billion is still being unpaid to the taxpayers of the United States that your children and grandchildren will have to pay. At the same time, they're giving bonuses out to everybody. I mean, it's incredible. We've got a situation where everyone's talking about, Greece. Matter of fact, the President of the United States, President Obama, is saying, the reason we've got problems is because of Europe. Well, folks, we've got our own problems. We are actually, I saw a very frightening analogy, the United States' debt to Greece's debt, and we are actually worse by many measures. And again, people my age, Clark Durant's age, those of us who are looking at and able to collect unemployment, maybe Social Security, we're not going to pay this debt like Brian had said, where they're treating their kids like kings because they're going out to get credit cards. We're putting it on children's credit cards.
Mm-hmm. Well, and there are ways to accomplish the same tasks where everybody benefits. You have just got to make good choices. Your snow cone machine. Yeah. I mean, seriously. I mean, and folks, this did happen. There is one here in Muskegon County. There is one in every county in this country. A snow cone machine was somehow a snow cone machine company got in the pocket of a legislator, and there was an attachment to a federal bill hidden on page 9,422 that there was an allocation to spend millions of dollars buying snow cone machines and sending them to every county across this country, and they just signed off on it, and this business had suddenly 1,000 snow cone machine orders. Well, and they send them out. Okay, now would you, as a businessman or as a home, compare that to your home? Would you do that? No. How about
the sheriff wouldn't have done it with his own budget?
I know exactly. How about the snow cone machine company giving a free snow cone machine to every county across this country? But you had to buy your product from that snow cone company for the next 10 years. Yeah, there's not a dollar spent by the federal government. Yeah, right. That business invests up front into America with the long-term return on investment that keeps his or her employees employed, and a guaranteed sale of product that he can derive revenue from in the long term. What a concept!
What a concept! Yeah. Well, let's bring this back into what's going on here into our county as we speak. People will be getting their ballots coming up in the next 2 weeks, and voting begins. So we're gonna be pushing the concept that you have a responsibility as a citizen. Certainly, have a responsibility if you're a parent or a grandparent to look at what kinds of people you have supported. If the person who you have voted for in the past is the kind of person who would say, I love that snow cone machine. I know that the $750,000 given to our Chubby County commissioners is really going to be a great investment. That the fact that the money going for new buses and money for this and money for that, if you think that maybe that's wrong, maybe at some point it's not just the big guys at the Senate and the House who are giving the money away, but at some point locally we have to start doing the right thing and saying, wait a minute, just accepting free money when it really isn't critical. Now, we need free money, I guess. We need it for roads, but we're finding out that the road Department of Road Commission doesn't have the money to fix some of the roads up in Holton. We're finding out that there really isn't money for the important things. There most certainly isn't money to pay back this horrible debt, but there's money to essentially what's going on is buying votes. So if you voted for a county commissioner in the past or a city councilman or a representative, and they are the kind of person who says, hey, I love accepting this free money, then maybe rethink it, because as Brian just said, it isn't free.
It isn't free at all. Somebody's paying for it in some way, shape, or form. If you're a voter, you're technically on the board of directors of the government, and you appoint someone to represent you. And if that person that represents you is devastating your company, why do we keep keeping those people as chairman of our organization? It doesn't make sense.
Well, in many cases, I think people vote because they don't realize. And I'll give you a good example. I don't know if you've seen this. There was a presentation Friday made to the Chamber of Commerce, which got a tremendously laudatory article, a few articles. It was a group called the Business Leaders of Michigan, and they came out with a Michigan turnaround plan. And if you go and click on the links, I've got the links there on Ion Muskegon and on MuskegonPundit.com also. But they came up with a very clear and vivid plan of how a community and how our state can get its act together. Well, I found it interesting. If you read the article, it talks about all the various benefits that we have here in West Michigan and on and on and on. But it conveniently forgets the number one point. They have a list of things that a responsible community will do. The number one issue, which was not mentioned at all in any of the articles in the Muskegon Chronicle, was responsible management of finances. And it goes through the issues that have been so dear to me: improve revenue forecasting, citizen-friendly balance sheet, zero-based budgeting to increase results, no new programs unless others are eliminated or revenues grow, a strategic plan, and on and on. Now,
a business model.
Exactly. And here is a real plan. But you asked, why are these the voters who actually sit on the board of directors, essentially? Because we're not necessarily getting the real information that we need.
Correct.
When we've got our county commissioners, at least 10 of the 11 for the last 10 years, have almost always voted yes for every union contract, every spending issue, every new hiring issue. The difference between Republican and Democrat blurs. Now, you may think that you've got a Democrat that you're supporting and he votes for things that you support, or you may have a Republican. But in fact, when they vote exactly the same on almost everything, there is no difference. You need to do your homework. Certainly, you can contact me at ionmuskegon.com. I've got a telephone and an email address if you want to get in touch.
And we talk about that on Talking Muskegon constantly. I said, don't call or don't stop us or don't come in and be on our show and question what's going on or have a position on what's going on if you haven't voted.
If you haven't voted.
Because we asked, did you vote? And if the answer is no, well, get out. I mean, because you're not contributing to the repair necessary. If you're not taking your right to vote, which is near and dear to America, if you're not exercising that right, don't complain. And then secondly, if you are going to vote, which you need to and you should, be educated in voting, because know what you're voting for and why.
Folks, be educated and know who you're voting for and what you're voting for. It's so critical. We will do our best to help you in that endeavor as time goes on. Thanks again, Brian Worsham, the legendary Oscar. Thanks to Jack Spencer at the Mackinac Center, who's continuing. Those folks just do a tremendous job. And of course, Clark Durant, and the best of luck to Clark. Educate yourselves, folks. We will be back again next week. Actually, we've got Randy Heckman, another candidate for the Republican nomination. And we'll probably have some updates from the Mackinac Center, too. Check us out on the web. Check the ionmuskegon.com website, blog. And Oscar is the guy who keeps us on TV, Channel 40, TV 40, on Rabbit Ears and Comcast 397.
38, but that's okay.
Oh, TV 38. There we go. Have a great week, folks. Next week we'll put the eye on you, Muskegon.
Bad boys, what you want, what you want, what you gonna do when Sheriff John Brown come for you?
Call Bad Boys Bail Bonds. Open 24/7, 365 days a year. Agents statewide and nationwide. We do 10% bonds for less. Call toll free 866-728-6400. And remember, if we can't get you out, you ain't getting out. Payment plans available. Call now 866-728-6400.
Make a run for the border. Taco Bell is waiting to cook for you. Delicious tacos, nachos, chalupas, gorditas, quesadillas, or try their famous grilled stuffed burrito for only $1.99. Make it a combo for only $3.49. Their large variety includes specialties, combos, supreme, salads, and kids' meals. Taco Bell, the best fast food north of the border. So walk in or drive up. Visit all of the Taco Bells in West Michigan. Open Sunday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Taco Bell's open Fridays and Saturdays from 10 a.m. until 1 a.m.
Classic Computer Sales and Service. They buy, sell, trade, repair, and upgrade. New custom-built computers, 3-year guarantee, excludes laptops, or your computer tuned up with more memory, hard drive, or maybe a DVD burner installed for $49.95. Need cables, power supply, or get the computer built the way you want it? You can do it at Classic Computer in their new location, 1921 Apple Avenue, Suite B. Call 773-5957. Classic Computer with hometown quality service.
David, you were the co-host at the Eye on Muskegon radio show when Judge Andrew Waringo talked about the sobriety court program that he had set up, an extraordinarily successful program. And we also, among other things, talked about some other similar type courts, a drug court, there's perhaps a veterans court. Tell us a little bit about your interest in this, because I know that you have been very passionate about this entire area of law, which is really new to our county, or relatively new to our county.
A very large problem that we have in Muskegon County and the state of Michigan is overcrowding of our jail and overcrowding of our prison. What this causes is, first of all, it puts dangerous people on the street because we don't have enough beds for them. It causes a lack of deterrence for people who are going to commit crimes because they know they're not going to have to serve their full sentence. It causes a problem with rehabilitating people who are guilty of crimes because they're not in the system long enough, or because they know that they're not going to have to serve a full sentence.
All right, so what do these courts do to alleviate these problems?
These particular courts are very important because it reduces the number of people who come back into court. In Muskegon County, we have a mature sobriety court, which is for people who are multiple offenders of alcohol-related offenses, primarily drunk driving. We have a fledgling mental health specialty court, and we have a fledgling veterans court. What we don't have is a drug court which handles cases involving criminals who are there because of either dependence or use of illegal drugs as opposed to alcohol. As a circuit court judge, I would do my very best and promote not only maintaining the courts that we have and building up the fledgling ones that we have, but also developing a drug court in Muskegon. I think it's very important in order to reduce the population in our jails, or at least put it this way, to make room for the more violent people that need to be there instead of putting them on the street. And it's going to take a circuit court judge who is dedicated to this, because it involves a lot of coordination with the prosecutor's office and the defender's office, and from the state of Michigan, and possibly even from the federal government, because you need grants and you need income for these specialized treatment programs.
So you bring in, with your broad experience, obviously the temperament and the very high level of interest in expanding this very efficient and I would say a very compassionate program. But it also needs money, and I know that you have been involved in local politics at a variety of levels, and it needs money and funding. And what do you bring to the table that might help us add a new court? Because money's going to be part of what the judge, certainly Judge Waringo, did in creating the sobriety court.
Well, first, I'm a strong advocate for it, and that's very important, and I will work hard to accomplish that. Second, I have considerable administrative skills, which I've done throughout my career. Third, I've been in the financial world and philanthropic world and raising funds, so I know what it's like to have to write grants and get grants And I've dealt with a lot of politicians in my life, and frequently that's where some of the money is either with state or federal government, and you need to search for those funds and have a good relationship with all these various people, which I also think I have shown throughout my career as an ability to get along with people and to work collectively towards an important goal.
I would just say, as someone who knows you and is relatively familiar with the legal world here in Muskegon County, but I'm learning how many tools are necessary to really be an effective judge, and the talents and experience necessary to be as successful as Judge Graves has been over these many years, and as some of the other judges that we have here in the county. They really bring not just temperament and great judgment and compassion, but they bring an array of experience. Seems to me that you have an awful lot of that already without even sitting on the bench for a minute. And I wish you the best in the coming election.
Thank you. I hope the voters feel that way too on August 7th.